you're welcome to. I would advise doing, like, rather than having, like, 3 kind of sketchy walk cycles, it'd be better to have, like, one that's really nice, and that way you could at least use it as, like, a portfolio piece. It also will, like, point-wise equal out to more or less the same thing anyway. But yeah, cool. Alright, I'm just gonna go in whatever random alphabetical order I have, and I will do reverse alphabetical order to be different, because I can. So again, when you guys are looking at these, pretty much anything at this point is open for grabs in terms of crit. You can do, like, again, how well stuff syncs to audio, lighting and texturing, anything like that. Awesome. All right. I'm just gonna start. I say I do think the changes you did on like the butter hands and the blue cheese look really nice. It definitely makes them, I think, integrated a little bit better with the scene. I don't know, but that was a magical moment. That was just quite funny. This is a clip. What is this? The movie is French Kiss, I guess? That's fair. Gotcha. Gotcha. Interesting. Well, either way, I mean, I think overall this came out pretty cool. Like, I think you did a nice job on the breads. But yeah. So anyone, question or thoughts, comments, things they like, etc.
I really like your bread texture.
Yeah. I just noticed like a little bit of pixelation on the back of the baguette, but like that's not super visible, but like, yeah, bread textures are nice. Anyone else?
I really like the hand motions, and even though they're like kind of floating out around the characters, it makes sense and like know who they belong to. And I feel like it was pretty naturally.
Indeed. Feel free to just yell out. Yeah.
I love like the hands. I think they bring so much to the table. Because like caresses
Yes.
the jelly bean, and it's so cute. I think the motion is super cool. Like in terms of like movement, like all of them seem pretty natural. I would say the only rigid things would be like when he slams the jar on top of the table. It's a little bit robotic, and also when he like bends, it's like not like how a human bends, but like like at a 90-degree angle. And
Yeah. So you're basically saying like with the bend, like it could maybe be a little bit more like fluid instead of like from one point. Gotcha. And was there? Were you saying other things? Okay. Yeah. I would pretty much agree with that. I think it might have been nice. And it looks like you did this with a rig, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, if you ever do anything like this in the future, it might be interesting to look at maybe like a few different joints that you could just sort of like bend all at once. It would give you a little bit more of a smoother arc. I like his like ridiculous little like waddle in the beginning. Like that's just delightful. And then there's the one thing like where he hits you see the whole jar shake, but it doesn't quite look like the gumballs are shaking with it. So I don't know if that was just me like seeing things. If you ever want to do anything like with this in the future or like end up re-rendering, I would just parent the gumballs to the rest of the container, and that way they would just sort of like move with it. But yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts, comments? All right. But yeah, I mean, I think overall, like, this is pretty strong animation. It does a good job sort of creating, like, a weird vibe, but also, like, I don't know, I think you did a really nice job with the texturing. You sort of have this, like, strange combination of, like, rendered bread textures, and you've sort of, like, done a good job sort of integrating that into the display case. Where I guess it used to look really sort of futury, and it still kind of is with all the like glass and reflections, but then you have like the HDRI in the background. And normally one thing I sort of, I guess, warn against is if you're gonna have like a, you know, hyper-realistic HDRI in the background like you have here, you need to really like make your textures and stuff match that so they don't stand out as being like super fake. And I think you've done a good job sort of doing that and like integrating the two together. Also, out of curiosity, so like, clearly you have done things to the butter hands. How did you end up getting this sort of like very clear gooey effect to that? Was that just subsurface scattering, or were you playing around with like refraction or any other stuff? Sweet. Yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. It's really weird how you can like see the hand or like the cherry through his hand, but it's also kind of cool.
They almost look like they're made out of dough. Like they're out of dough.
I would buy that. They do kind of look like, with the spices in the hands kind of mirror the spices in this. It almost looks like a little slab of like uncooked bread. But yeah, I mean, I think overall like this came out pretty cool. I do think you did a good job sort of like keeping the hands with the bodies, which was like mentioned before. But yeah, sweet. And you've also done a good job with this like ridiculous caressing like kissing of the cherry motion. It is always fun, just like in general, when people are like watching someone else's stuff and then they like actually get like good chuckles and reactions out of it, which you guys did. So it's always like satisfying. Cool. Last call for thoughts, comments on this one. All right. And actually, do you guys have any interest in looking at the demo reels, seeing things with the original clips, or just sort of like doing the finals? Okay. Cool. So that, okay. But yeah, cool. So any thoughts on this, having now seen the demo reel? Yeah. No, I would definitely agree with that as well. Cool. Anyone else? All right. So from now on, I will do the demo reels first, and then probably just like run through them once, and then we can do like the actual sort of animation. All right, so that's the original clip. I will pull up the larger version. So anyone have any thoughts, comments on this?
I love all the texturing and the way that the ruler is scored. I think it just looks really good. This is like, the whole thing just looks really polished.
Yeah. No, I would most definitely agree with this. I may fangirl a little bit over like the brushed metal texture on the scissors, among other things. And there's like, oh, whoops, sorry. There's like 1.5 frames where you can see, like grime right around that little nub, like in the scissors, and I'm just like, ooh, that's a nice touch. Beads also look nice. Indeed. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I do think for like a pair of falling scissors, it does do a really, really good job sort of representing like what was actually happening. And I think this was like one of those clips where I might have like in the beginning been like, this might be challenging to do just because you're like hitting a bunch of bridges and there's like a bunch of stuff moving. Yeah, but like
All the Sims, it took so long.
I would believe that, but like it came out really, really nicely.
The one bridge at the end that he falls through, I don't know why, but it kept, whenever I would sim it, after it would break and he went through it, it would start reassembling. And you can see it in here too.
I didn't. I
couldn't get that to not happen.
interesting. I did like low-key notice that. That's really funny. I mean, it's not funny, but it's like kind of funny.
It was really funny. This one, or right after this. That, yeah, it reassembled.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I was thinking maybe it could be a weird setting, either like a stray keyframe where like it maybe some kind of like thing for rigidity or something was like turned up higher than necessary. But yeah, that is really weird. The beads just make me happy every time I see them. They look really nice. I just noticed the little scissors on the bridge. I think that the one thing, like this looks really, really pretty. I like that the grass is like recent. Yeah, I don't remember seeing that before. Little fuzzy grasses?
Yeah.
Okay. I think the one thing that like stands out if you were ever gonna like use this for something as being maybe a little bit less polished as the rest of the stuff is like this overhead clip right at the end.
Yeah, the lighting was really weird to get because, like, in the actual shot, it's like overhead sunlight.
Yeah.
So, like, doing it got rid of all the shadows.
Yeah.
I kind of had to fudge the lighting. It was really fun.
Oh, I'm actually not even talking about the lighting. I was mostly talking about like the texturing. The thimbles look cool, but I was mostly talking about like the texturing for the grass, cause it. What?
I think you went to that.
Yeah. I think if you ever wanted to like go back and sort of like push this further, maybe you could sort of mirror, like there's like that subtle cloth texture on the sidewalls. Maybe throw that on here and see if you could get like a few little like lumpy, there's like creases from the buttons. Just to sort of break it up a little bit. I think if it had some kind of like additional color or texture, because it looks like everything else is like really, really, really strong textures. And this, like the grass just sort of looks almost flat green.
Yeah, I think that's actually with the lighting. 'Cause
Yeah.
it has the same button map as the walls.
Does it really? Holy crap. Okay, maybe like pop in a little diffuse map or something for that as well. Yeah, okay. And I say like the lighting would also.
Maybe occlusion or something, but then I didn't find it.
Gotcha. AI usually renders fairly quickly. And that, I mean, that would definitely be a cool thing to like sort of pop in and like see, because it would also probably pick up some of your grass a little bit better. So that would definitely be a thing that you could try. Is this thimble bloody or rusty?
Rusty.
Okay. Okay. But yeah. Cool. Anyone else have any other thoughts or comments? I love the crochet hooks came out really nice. As someone who used to crochet, I can attest that they look like crochet hooks. And I assume just like dynamic objects for the beads.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Wait, for the bouncing on the bridge?
Yeah.
No, I just did that.
Oh, you just hand animated that? Well, hot dang, it looks nice. I also like the little fuzzes that you put in the string up top. So what stuff for like the secondary motion did you hand animate versus simming? I mean, like obviously the bridges are end cloth.
The only thing that was really simmed was the bridges breaking and the rope. And then there are some cases where the rope wasn't working how I wanted it, so I had to hand animate it. So like when the rope it like curls around,
Yeah.
almost last shot, I handed that,
Dang.
which is why it's kind of the best because it's taking forever. And I couldn't get it to sim right. It would just like kind of like crunch in half and have like a sharp turn.
Gotcha. That might be one of those things where you would just need a crap ton of a lot of polys or like little control points in the curve to get that. How did you just like rig that? Like how did you hand animate the curve at the bottom?
I animated the control points.
Okay, gotcha.
I keep those.
Gotcha,
But
gotcha.
Otherwise, everything's animated by, except for the bridges.
Cool. Well, I mean, you didn't really like. I legitimately thought that the beads were simmed because they have a very like fluid, realistic motion to them. It's kind of terrifying to realize that you hand animated those. But yeah, sweet. Any other thoughts and comments on this? All right. Yeah, and I think like overall this is like a very strong animation. I also like that you put in a little like stainless steel text in it. Like I feel like the scissors and like a lot of the stuff in this would actually be good for just like, here is a pretty textured object for my portfolio, and just do like a turntable of it because you obviously put a lot of care into the main objects. Cool. Alrighty then. Memories. Alright. So that was the original clip, or the demo reel. Don't know what I'm saying anymore. Say again?
I forgot to put sound in the file.
Gotcha. Alright. I mean, it was a silent film anyway, so it's not like there's audio cues to really pay attention to. But yeah, so any thoughts and comments on this one, or anything we should know before looking at it?
I don't know. I might fix that too stuff because it got obscured.
Gotcha. Wait, what do you mean? Like,
Like after it bounced off the bird and it just hide behind it and like the art goes and stuff.
gotcha. I do notice, so it looks like it's maybe at a different angle here than it is.
Because I want to show it.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I would say that would be a solid sort of fix if you wanted to play with that.
I love when the bird gets close to the camera from the beginning. It's just like how you did that is so perfect and creepy. Like I've never been scared of like a small bird that looks really terrifying.
I would agree. It was a creepy, powerful shot. I also, the roots on the leek are like terrifying and creepy, but in like a kind of satisfying way. Cool. Anyone else have any thoughts, comments?
How did you do like the clouds that like
Particle,
I always think it's cool when people do like particle-y stuff. It fits your theme well with like the sort of very silly like cartoony bubbles. So like stylistically, I feel like it also is nice. But yeah. Yeah, they're just such a creepy bird. I also like it's since I think the last time I looked at this, at least in class, I see with the tombstone. I like the sort of extra like wiggly motion that you gave the little guy as he comes in. I think that definitely helps to sort of sell that, and the little particle clouds help to sell the sort of idea of like, I'm out of control. Yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts or comments? It's also interesting because like you clearly have like a realistic background, but it's blurred to the point where it kind of just like isn't. I don't find that it's like noticeable or that it like detracts from the rest of things. I would say maybe watch out. It's like a little bit low res at times, particularly like mostly just like along these like really high contrasty edges. But yeah, I mean, I think you've done a good job of sort of like translating the kind of strange, abstract, silent clip into a very quirky. I like when the bird dies. I want him to have like a little like foot twitch at the end, like.
I actually wanted to do that initially, but like how I rigged it was that the body was tied to the foot, so I cannot move the foot without moving the body. But I might like try to replace it with another group of bird, but with the leg tied to the body instead, and then that would work.
Gotcha. There has to be a clever sort of like way around that. But no,
Yeah, it does.
wait.
Yeah, like
Oh yeah.
that's replaced.
I mean, that's actually also a fair point. You could just, as soon as the bird sort of like lands and hits the ground, you could just swap it out like you did for that scene and just like key the visibility to be a different bird with like a separate foot. It's a satisfying like weight, like how the bird sort of like hits the ground. I almost feel like the bird is so weird. Like half the time it's being like especially in the beginning when it's like poking in the camera and like being really in your face, it feels really sort of like naturalistic and lifelike and like alive. And then at the end it almost feels like a plastic toy where it's like being hit through the fence, which is kind of both strange and interesting at the same time. I like how the leak comes in and like hits it. It's like very satisfying. I actually almost think it would be neat, possibly. I don't know. I'm curious. What do you guys think? So like when the tombstone comes down and like hits the bird and then sort of like does like squash on the bird and then it like bounces off. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Yeah. Fair enough. Part of me, the crazy part of me that is like bad at doing cartoon animation like this is like, oh, like it should totally like press the bird into the ground or like crush it or something stupid. And then I'm like, but this whole thing is really cartoony. So I do feel like it kind of works.
I really like the lighting. Like, especially compared to the original shot.
Mhm.
Something about it is like warm, but like it doesn't contrast with like the first piece. Something about it.
Yeah, and you've done I think a good job. Agree with that comment. You've done a good job also at like taking it, like still kind of reads as like a sunsetty vibe, but like taking it down from that original sort of like super red horror movie lighting feel. I also like that you've added, it looks like a subtle bump map on the ground, so it's like not just a flat, like it's has some actual dimension, but then you've also done a subtle bump map, so it actually like looks like ground instead of just a flat plane. Always like a nice thing to do for stuff. But yeah. Cool. Any other thoughts, comments on this one? Still a very satisfying little bird. But yeah, I mean, I think if you want to do anything with this going forward, I would look at the tombstone like you mentioned, and then maybe, I think I personally would maybe like to see a little bit more sort of something happen with the bird, because if you look in like once he gets thrown through the fence. Because if you look in the God, that's terrifying. If you look in the original clip, I think he like gets thrown through the fence and kind of like flails around a little bit.
He literally get up and was like,
Yeah. So I think it might be nice if that's completely ridiculous in the original clip. Like all of that is ridiculous, but like maybe sort of bring a little bit of that in where he like flails around a little bit or is like sort of like, oh, I've been blasted through a fence and like last try to like cling to nope, and then he dies. Or something, because I think that might sort of help the bird feel a little bit more alive throughout the rest of the clip, as well as almost making the death more satisfying. Because like originally he kind of looks dead, and then all of a sudden he like gets a tombstone dropped on him, and I feel like if you saw that like last little like blips of life, it would make that a more impactful moment, if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, apart from that, I think the like birds and stuff are like definitely creepy. There's a tiny bit of clipping on the last, like when the bird sticks his head through the fence hole. If you gotcha. Yeah. I was gonna say, I mean, the easiest fix for that, if you happen to be re-rendering that scene, would just be to like shorten that one fence post just like a tiny bit, so it's just not clipping. I think because it's only in like the one board, I think. But yeah, no, I do like the sort of uneven fence posts that you've been going for. The lake also clipped a bit. But yeah, cool. Last call, thoughts, comments? Yeah, that's kind of like what I was thinking as well. I also like anytime any kind of like tombstone or like heavy object is dropped on something, I think of like the 16-ton weight from Monty Python, but that's unrelated. Cool. Anything else? All right. On to the next one. All right, so original clip, and where am I going? Blah. Cool. Every time I watch this, that song gets stuck in my head, and then I run around singing it, and my roommates get angry at me. But yeah, cool. So any thoughts and comments on this one? Wait, say again?
The way the feet move, I like. Just, especially here.
Yeah.
It's just like, kind of funny, it's cute, but it like makes sense.
Yeah. I agree. That's like a really, especially in the beginning, like the feet movement is really charming. I kind of wish that it, like throughout the whole animation, it kind of was like on the same level as it was at the beginning, because it feels like at some point it just sort of, well, I mean, it actually started detaching from the body a bit, which is a little strange, but it feels a little bit sort of flat, like not quite like syncing with whatever the character was doing, if that makes sense. Like the original character had a lot of like foot movement, he was like moving his knees and stuff back and forth, and at some point kind of like around here, it looks like the legs just sort of start like flopping back and forth without really, or not like flopping, but like wiggling back and forth without really following the motion as much. Anyone else?
I think a lot of the primary movement is really good and matches up a lot. One thing I wish there was a little bit more secondary movement, like when he's throwing down his umbrella, he kind of like he's bending a lot.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. I do think some secondary motion would sort of help. Especially, I'm also looking at areas like the, pretty much like any of the leaves. Like I'm sort of imagining maybe that could be, I mean, honestly, the leaves would be set up pretty easily as end cloth, where you could like sort of pin it to the main flower and then have like fairly rigid petals, but like as he moved, they would sort of like fluff back and forth ever so gently. I think most of them, and you could totally end cloth cards, because I think if I remember correctly, all of these are card petals. Anyone else? Cool. The other thing I just noticed while watching this version, I don't know if this was the thing before, but daisies normally have front and back sides, and this one just sort of has like the front on both sides of it, which is a little strange. I do kind of like when he like pulls out his little petal. But yeah, I mean, I think overall, so this rain was, I guess, done in After Effects. Yeah, is that okay? I mean, I think that actually came across pretty nicely. The only thing that's like a little bit strange about it, is it looks like it's moving with the camera. If this was a stationary camera, that would like totally not be an issue. And it looks like, sort of consistently throughout the end, have like really big drops of rain falling like right here on the screen, and like right here. Although now, wait, is this moving with the camera or not? Because now that I look at it, it looks like it is.
I don't think it is, because the way it works in After Effects is that it just kind of goes on the scene, like it kind of makes a fake 3D scene in After Effects.
Gotcha.
And like creates fake depth, but I don't think it moves with the camera. It just kind of changes as it goes on. The presets for it, like you can change like how large the raindrops are and how often they show up and like the distance between them.
Gotcha.
So like that's changing, but I don't think it's changing like as
Interesting. I played with After Effects Sims once, like 5 years ago. But either way, yeah, I mean, I think like overall it's like a pretty nice effect. Just like every once in a while I look at it, I'm like, something's weird about this, but I like can't place what it is. But it definitely does like come across as like heavy sort of rain. But yeah, I think overall, if you ever wanted to like use this as a portfolio piece or anything like that in the future, I might go through and try to kind of like what we said before, get a little bit more secondary motion in the body, and then maybe how did you animate? Like, did you rig this at all, or is this just like deformers?
I tried rigging it initially and it went horribly wrong, so I just had to use deformers.
Gotcha. I'm curious at what horribly wrong means.
Like, the controllers wouldn't move properly, and when it did move them, they would end up like, I don't know how to explain, but incredibly far apart, like completely out of the scene.
It's probably double transformations because of how an outliner stuff was set up, I would imagine.
But it just like
Yeah.
was not cooperating, or sometimes it just wouldn't move anything at all, even if it was like paired properly.
Interesting.
It was just
Interesting. But yeah, so I mean, it might be. I mean, for something like this, I think a rig would be beneficial. Obviously, I mean, you said you're having issues, but I think it might be nice, again, if you wanted to use this for the future or like polish it some more, really try to like push what's happening with the body of this guy. So like you can, I don't know if you did this at all, but you can sort of key the deformers up and down on this, basically along the stalk of the body, and sort of like, you could make him sort of like wiggle back and forth, or like change basically how they're working to like force a little bit more motion out of them if you ever needed to do something like that. You could also put, you know, a deformer like on the bottom of his body and then one on the top, and then try to like, you know, squeeze in some more control that way. But yeah, I mean, I think like basically I would just try to, if possible, like capture a little bit more of that sort of motion from the first one, because like this is really charming. I do like it. I think like overall it's like definitely a cute sort of idea. It feels like maybe a little bit stiff compared to the original. But yeah, I'm still impressed. Like the fact that you used a bunch of card bushes and they actually like I feel like they read fairly well for having an entire flat bush made out of cards, which is impressive. A lot of times people sort of take multiple cards of like a branch and then they'll like compile it into a bush.
Yeah.
But I feel like they work reasonably well in the beginning. The hydrangeas are still like tiny bit. They look stretched. I think that's just like what it is to me. But yeah,
Not that I remember like giving me a lot of issues for some reason. Like the image that I had.
gotcha.
I like make sure it did with the stretch as like this, but it just didn't translate well.
Gotcha. I think the ivy looks nice on the wall, but yeah, cool. Any other thoughts, comments on this one? All right, sweet. On to the next one. All right, so. Such crazy screaming in that one. Wait, say again? That sounds terrifying. That's like, it's always, yeah, this is definitely one of those sound clips where like I feel like it would get really, really annoying listening to it over and over while you're doing stuff. But yeah, so any thoughts, comments on this? Say again? Gotcha. Wait, what?
There's like a little cut in the video where Duffy, Kitty's brother, is like, yeah.
Gotcha. I do like, I noticed you've gone through and like there's now like dimension to your windows and stuff like that. Huzzah. I still like the sticky notes. They look nice. So do the tack pins.
I think this is like the funniest thing ever. It's like fantastic. Overall, I love the charm of the room. I think it's really cute. I also love how it's a pencil and a pen duking it out together. I think a lot of the main motions are there. The only thing is that like it freaks me out a little that like they have hips and they like they shake their bottom halves at each other. But overall, like, yeah, I just think like they're just a little bit jittery down there, but like overall, it's good.
Did you play with the graph editor when like it goes like back in the game? That's what I thought. It's like it looks like it's still like a curve instead of like a sharp impact, and that would probably help your scene. Like it looks like it's just like smoothing down. I don't know. That's the only thing out that's like broken. If you wanted to do like
Yeah, I do. That is a fair point. Yeah, like going into the graph editor and really sort of like spiking some of those impacts would be good, especially. So like the impacts a lot of times like when they fall, and also sort of when they get up from that fall, maybe feel like they could have a little bit more weight to them. I think that like that first one feels pretty nice. Like when they sort of fall and they hit the ground, like it feels like a hard impact, and they sort of like drift back up a little bit.
It'd be really cool if you could make that mug shatter with sound. But that would be a lot.
Yeah. I do like that like bum rush right at the end where like it looks like, and I think one of my last comments from last time I saw this was like lean the, I think it was the pencil forward a little bit so it looks like he's like really charging, and it looks like that was a thing that you did, and I think it definitely sort of helps read with the like aggression and weight of that motion. Or no, it was the pen that was charging. I think there's like also this one weird tiny thing. It could just be, oh, okay, okay. I kept seeing this little black thing on the floor, and then I realized it was like the pencil lead. I thought it was an ant or something weird. But yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts, comments? Which one's head? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it looks like maybe just like a stray rotation on the joint in the rig or something. But yeah, I think one thing that I would sort of focus on, I like the occasional like flash of light that you get in the pencil. That's strangely satisfying. But I think for me, I think what I would focus on is the weight of those impacts, like was mentioned before. So seeing if you can get, like really make that feel, heavy, or like really like they're sort of pushing themselves up off the ground, like ready to, I don't know, be attacked again, kind of. And then if there was, I think, some way, again, kind of like watch the deformations every once in a while in those joints. And if there was a way to maybe make the characters sort of like hopping, or like sort of figure out like some kind of walk cycle that you would want to use, and that could just be as simple as like taking the animation that you have, because I do kind of like the like weird flaily pen and like the weird flaily pencil, and if you just sort of like took that existing motion and maybe like added some jumps where they're like sort of like a bunch of like quick hops back and forth, like instead of like, what am I saying? So right now the pencil is just sort of like zigzagging back and forth across the floor. If it was maybe like hop, 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 and it like did a bunch of like quick little hops, all you would really need to do for that is just like mess with the Y translation, so like it kind of goes in the air and then like lands. And then you could also mess, assuming your rigs are still set up the same way they were last time I saw them, you could sort of mirror that motion, so like just basically translate the root up and down a little bit, and it would give you sort of like nice like quick hops. That would really make the characters feel like they have a lot of extra weight to them, and are moving. Every time I say realistically for like hopping pencils, I'm like grain of salt, but it would make them feel like a little bit more sort of alive and like weighted more properly, if that makes sense. But I do think it's a cute concept, and I like it has a certain like silly charm to it. I kind of also wish there would be more maybe like details, like this reminder report due is like super cute, and it feels like sort of, I don't know how to describe it, maybe like a personal touch. If there was maybe like a few more of those things just sort of like around the room, and I'm thinking like nothing super crazy fancy. I'm just sort of thinking like, oh, like what do sometimes people like put pictures of their family on their desk, or like other weird notes, or like it might be kind of cool just for some extra visual interest to like throw that around. I also maybe scale up the texture of the bricks a little bit. They feel a little bit small. But also, I mean, I feel like scale's been fudged a lot in this, which is totally fine. So, yeah, I don't know if that's like makes a huge difference. Cool. Are there... Oh, okay, never mind. I was like, for a minute, I didn't realize that I was like seeing through, or like the reflection of the stapler. I thought I was like seeing through it for a minute. But yeah, cool. Any other thoughts, comments on this one? All right. So, next one I have. So original clip and all right. Any thoughts, comments on this one?
I love how you changed the hat to like rotate around, like it feels like it's moving around on the actual killer, and also the background really came out nicely. The chop bit.
I agree. I do the. I assume the motion of the hat was hand animated, or
Yeah.
okay. I mean, that came out really, really nice. Like, it feels, I don't know, I swing stuff around my fingers a lot, and, like, that motion feels really accurate for
Yeah.
what you were doing.
That's what I was about to say. It feels not only accurate to real life, it feels physically sound, but it also definitely gives a lot of personality to the film, or also in the animation. Because, like, it definitely ramps up accurately to what's going on in the scene. I think you nailed it.
Yeah. I think, honestly, I think the hat is, like, probably one of the most successful parts of this. Because, like, one, like, the motion is really realistic looking, and two, it's, like, a really weird way, yeah, like you said, to, like, sort of ramp up with the scene and, like, make everything, I say higher stakes, but he's just, like, losing his hat. But, I don't know, something about it is just, like, very, like, strange and unsettling, and it's just, like, when he's doing that, like, oh, scream at the end, he's, like, lost his hat, and he's kind of, like, crazy now. Yeah?
I forget what it's called, but the black one on the edges.
Wait, what?
The vignette, yeah.
Mm.
I like it. I think it adds to like the creepy effect, but I think it might be a tiny bit too strong. I feel like in some places it like stops you from being able to see parts of the scene. And I really like big scenes, like that's why I love scenes. So, but
Gotcha. No, I can see that. I actually, like, somehow didn't even notice that there was a vignette on this, but now that you say it, I do feel like it kind of, mostly I think, like, sort of when you're on the other characters that aren't Willy Wonka, is kind of like when I notice it being maybe a tad strong. The other thing that, I don't know, maybe you could do, I was thinking, like, everything is, like, kind of trippy colors, like, conceivably you could, like, vary the color up a little bit, or, like, I don't know, that might be, like, a terrible suggestion. I assume, was the vignette put on to sort of, like, camouflage the fact that it doesn't quite look like there's anything in the background of some of, like, when you're on the, what am I saying? Just go find the place.
I kind of like that, and also I wanted to like make it more like dramatically focused.
Yeah.
But yeah, because it was kind of like difficult, like because I have the background and then the foreground to like match it up so that the background didn't kind of look like it was floating all the way in the distance. I put the vignette to like
Right.
kind of out of there.
No, that makes sense. I think, I mean, one thing you could do if you were just sort of like looking, it sounds like to sort of like get the background like going in like a tunnel shape almost.
Yeah.
Is that like an image plane in the background, or like how did you?
It's actually no, I think I changed it. Like I tried an image plane at first, but it was like not working. So I just kind of got like a cube to like flex it out and then adding texture on it.
Yeah. So that's actually what I was pretty much going to suggest. But what I was going to say is, I think that the plane reads totally fine, like at the beginning. For these clips, what you could do is like wrap it on a partial cylinder. So it would actually, then you'd get it like doing that like weird cavern thing, sort of like over. That probably would be how I approach that. And if you wanted to, I mean, like, you could do sort of one of two things. I mean, you could either like re-render the whole thing with the sort of partial cylinder, or you could just be like, this scene's totally fine. It's only those ones where you're like seeing down, and just swap it out. Like nobody's gonna notice that. And then you could just do. I mean, it looks like you've got either have duplicated your planes or like already done the sort of repeat UV to like duplicate the video along it, that's probably like the easiest way to just like do the duplicate, or like duplicate UVs or whatever in your texture settings. I do like, I kind of want to see the original footage of this, but I do like how you've gone through and just crushed all the color values like so aggressively. It kind of makes it disturbing.
So high.
It's true.
I think it's hilarious.
I do too. I kind of wish, I feel like every once in a while, like particularly in the beginning, and I kind of feel like it reads, but like at the beginning I couldn't really tell what was happening, and then like it kind of works because like right as he starts like ramping up his like crazy speech, it starts being more obvious, like, oh, he's chopping carrots, and then it's like, oh my god, like that's really messed up. And then like at the end you just have the knife and just carrot pieces flying everywhere. Like I think that's like a really satisfying thing, like when they're all screaming and you have this really, really clear picture in the back of just carrot carcasses being flung through the air. Which is not something I ever thought I would be saying in a final, thank you very much. But it looks like you displacement mapped the broccoli?
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah, I was like, I'm glad you did that because there's like no other way to do broccoli, I feel like, and make it look not sketchy. But yeah, anyone else have any thoughts, comments? Wait, are you talking about just at the end? Yeah. Mm. Gotcha. I'm not entirely sure I'm seeing what you're saying. I may just be misinterpreting what you're saying. I do think it does look a little bit like, now that I really look at the background, it kind of looks like you can see off the back of that like chocolate river plane. Maybe? It's so weird.
It's really weird, but I like how you can see the baby tomato breathing really heavily in the beginning.
That is, I legitimately didn't notice that. That's super cute. How did you do that? Was it just like a blend shape or?
I think I used like a wave deformer or something, and I was like, it kind of makes it look like it's hyperventilating. I'm gonna keep it.
Happy accident then. That is actually really, really cute. I can't believe I didn't, and I just noticed like all of the kids are sort of like doing something weird in the beginning. Like it looks like the carrot was like, ah. It might actually be cool to like see if you can get some more motion in, because like my actual focus in this was actually like this breadstick thing in the background. When I first saw it, it looks like, I don't know, it looks like it's like wiggling, and then I was like, oh, it's just like a spinning wheel. But I feel like that's like the sort of main area of motion in this, so that's like what I focused on. It might be cool to like punch in, because you do have that like really nice hyperventilate, and like carry that through the rest of the characters, or like give them a little more motion, because like some of them are moving and then some of them aren't. But I feel like it would be kind of cool to like get a little bit more of that. It would make them feel more alive and like more sort of like force the focus back onto the characters. Also, I like the way the texture of the light catches the texture of the peeler that you made. It does a nice job sort of punching in some like weird trippy colors into your scene, and also like highlighting the fact that you actually did put those texture details in. But yeah, cool. Any other thoughts, comments? Gotcha. Gotcha. That makes sense. Cool. Anyone else? All right. And I do realize that I actually missed a final. Demo reel. Alright, so that was the original clip. Alright, and the final. Alright, so any thoughts, comments on this one? Wait, say again? Sorry.
The texturing looks really good in this scene.
Yeah.
The pumpkin decorations are like super cool. Also, I just like how an eggplant is wielding a knife. Fantastic. The only thing is that there's not like a lot of sword knife swipes to show that like there's a lot of attacking going along. It looks like the eggplant is mostly defending, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He's a little bit more like of an offensive motion to it, to show that like the eggplant is defending or on the offensive.
Yeah. Fair point. Anyone else? Yep.
I really like the inside glow of the pumpkin and seeing the light, how it like casts like outwards as well, which is really cool. But yeah, I think I guess visualizing what's happening in the fight is kind of difficult at times. Just because I think the pumpkin is like it's a sphere, so it's hard to show exactly what it's doing in attack versus just moving.
That's fair. I think also part of the bit about like the pumpkin being a sphere and it's like hard to see what it's doing is the Jabberwock. Jabberwock?
Yeah, Jabberwock.
Okay. From the original clip is like its head does kind of almost like when you fluff up the little like fan things on its side, it does have that sort of like spherical thing, but it's also like has this really long snaky neck. And I feel like probably translating that, I imagine, to a pumpkin would be kind of difficult. And I think that might be where like some of the sort of like obviousness of the motion is like a little bit lost. But yeah, I mean, I do agree with that comment.
I was like, for what I did to like try to show, like to bring more life into it was like squash and stretch. Like,
Yeah.
pumpkin. But I didn't want it to be like too exaggerated. But I mean, like if I do like refine it, I guess I could like do more squash and stretch. Or is that's better?
I mean, I don't know. Let me throw up the demo reel again really quick because I kind of want to look at this next to the original again. I mean, I think part of it. So I think a lot of the motion, like when I look at this again, is actually sort of, you're like using the body as like a stand-in for like the main body of this guy, but like most of his motion, or not most of it, but a good portion of it, is actually from the wings. And it might be cool. This is like kind of like I guess late for me to be giving this comment because it'd be a lot of work to put this in. But it was like, oh, it'd be neat, like maybe if you swapped out like pumpkin leaves or like pumpkin tendrils for the wings. If you wanted to recreate that motion, that would probably be a reasonable way to do it. You know, you just have like a little stem with like a leaf. That you would probably have to rig, which at this point is like probably not super feasible. I think the other thing that might sort of help is like throwing a few blend shapes on the guy, and that way, because I mean he actually has a face. Like if you were able to sort of like do a little bit of opening and closing on the eyes, or like a little bit of opening and closing on that mouth, that would also sort of help get the sort of expressions of the Jabberwock. You could also have him going like rah and like opening the mouth a little bit, and that should still be relatively compatible with your blend shapes if you didn't, want to like redo everything, because that obviously at this point is like not a super feasible comment. Anybody else have any thoughts or comments about like how maybe to get some of the motions translating a little bit, I guess closer to the original clip, or like reading more clearly? Yeah.
I think it would be cool, like when he at least shoots like electricity out of his mouth, the pumpkin shot. Either like pumpkin guts or like fire out of his mouth.
Pumpkin seeds.
That's what I was plan on doing for my recent bit.
Gotcha.
Just the compositing of like either like the fire
Mm-hmm.
or something else.
Gotcha. You could, I mean, probably the easiest thing to do if you wanted to would be pumpkin seeds, because they're just like stiff objects, and what you could basically do is like attach them to particles, and just put like a little emitter in the pumpkin, and just have them be like, blah, and just like pelt them with seeds, and that way they would just sort of bounce off and be like their own sort of self-contained thing. But I do like, yeah, the idea to have something like shooting out of the mouth, I think is nice. And then was the plan, so like I know in the original clip, like Alex has the sword. I noticed like there's a bunch of pots and stuff behind the eggplant, and I was like, oh, maybe they could go like grab a pot and like use that as a shield. So like they basically would be shooting then like pumpkin seeds or pumpkin guts or like whatever you use like at something, I guess, that feels a little bit more feasible to block with instead of a blade. I will say I do really enjoy for some reason like the avocados in the background just look really nice to me. The way the light like shines off their bumps is satisfying. Just like every time I watch this, it makes me happy. But yeah, and then I think maybe, how are you controlling the eggplant? Like, is there any kind of like bend deformers or anything on that?
No, I just use like regular like protein scale and then like
Gotcha. I feel like I do like the piece of pumpkin that sort of like falls on the ground. Strangely creepy. But I think some bend deformers on the eggplant would also help, because it's, I mean, apart from like the wings of the Jabberwock, like I think Alice herself definitely has the most sort of motion, especially when she's like rolling on the ground to get up. And a bend deformer would sort of like help sell that and feel like she's getting a little bit more weight as well. But yeah. Any other thoughts, comments? Yeah, I feel like most of what I said, or like I would focus on, it's kind of already been said, but basically it would just be like kind of seeing if you can translate the motions of the characters a little bit more clearly. Because I feel like without the original clip next to it, I kind of have trouble following what's going on. It's like obviously some kind of fight, but I don't quite get I don't get the scale of it that I get from the original, if that makes sense. And also it looks maybe like some of the timing is a little bit weird. Yeah, like so I was looking specifically like where Alice gets hit by the tail, like thrown to the ground. The timing of that is off, which doesn't quite match up with the sound cues, at least in this version of it. But yeah, cool. I do think the background and the lighting and stuff looks really nice. Like you have this like nice sort of like ominous shadow in the background, which is kind of cool. It does a nice job highlighting your pumpkin. Yeah. All right. Last call. Thoughts, comments? All right. In that case, we did. Nope. Oh. So original clip, and wait, this is, oh yeah, you said you submitted all of them in the same place?
No, that was for last go round.
Okay. Gotcha. So for the final, I just have a bunch of TIFFs.
I submitted the MP4 and the final. Like,
Gotcha. I'll go search for them again. I might have just missed them in the download. For now, I'll just kind of leave this going in the background. But yeah, any thoughts and comments on this one so far? It's a satisfying recliner lean.
I think all the lighting and texturing is like really well done.
Oh, yep. Yeah, I do think the lighting and texturing did come out extremely nicely. I think the only thing I maybe would look at for that is the carpet texture feels a little bit large and or low resolution.
I was having trouble with that. I did that in Substance Designer.
Okay. Wait, okay, so you like made that,
Procedurally.
gotcha. So what I would recommend is, I mean, for one, what am I saying? Google has like a lot of pre-made carpet textures that will tile. If you ever are like doing something like that in the future. Although it is cool that you made your own. I've never really messed with like the procedural capabilities of Substance Painter. I think I did find your actual file. I did, right. But yeah, so I mean, what you could do once you went into Maya is just like go into the sort of repeat U, repeat V channel of the like place 2D texture, and then just like repeat that. You'll still get the nice texture that you made. It'll just be, it'll shrink it down so it's like the scale and like the resolution just like aren't as like large, I guess, if that makes sense. I like that you put like a subtle texture on his hair. It does good things in the specular highlights. But yeah, any other thoughts, comments? Just, bad Chrome. Gotcha. I do. Yeah, I can see that. I do, for one, I like that you put the like a little animated like mouth and eyebrows on the characters. It's like cute, silly little subtle touch. I think so like I think all of the like animation stuff is like really strong. The only part that I might sort of look at, I just noticed the Legos don't have ears. I don't know why, I just noticed that. But there's like two points where Hopper kind of like stops moving at all. And I think they sort of stand out because you do for the rest of it have a pretty good sense of like secondary motion or like things happening. And that's right. He like knocks, and like right here for like 1 second there's like no motion at all. So that might be an area where you just like go in and do like a little bit of subtle something where maybe like, you know, he leans forward a little bit just to like give him that like slight idle animation. And then there's another point like right before he gets off the couch, which is a very satisfying motion, where he's still, but I don't really notice that one as much because it's like that might be another place where maybe it would be interesting to get like tiny bit of motion in there, but I think, yeah, like right sort of there, as was also mentioned, like where right when he opens the door, and like you have the eyebrow motion in there. I don't know, part of me like wants something else, but I don't know what. I mean, part of me thinks it would be funny. You have the animated eyebrows, give him like shifty eyes, and like move his eyes over, and be like, "What just happened?" Like, but yeah, no. But I mean, like, I think overall, like, this is really it comes across nicely, like knowing what the scene is or like not knowing what the scene is. And the characters are definitely sort of like snarky and sassy. It looks like you got the sort of like flicker of the TV in.
Yeah, this animated the color exposure. Because I tried like map a video on it, but it wasn't coming across right.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I think it works very nicely. It's like a nice little like subtle thing that you don't notice the first thing through, and then you're like, oh my god, like the TV is animated. Like that's cool. But yeah, anyone else have any thoughts, comments? I love this bit where he leans back and you can just hear the creaking of the chair. I also kind of like there's one piece like right where Hopper gets off the couch and then he bends backwards like really aggressively, but I like it. It just feels like such a ridiculous like sort of toy motion.
Yeah, but watching like Lego movie clips and it's so extra for a lot of it.
Yeah, no, I mean I definitely think that comes across really nicely. I think this is it's been a while since I watched the Lego movie, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of hated the Lego movie. Did they do a thing, if I remember correctly, where they sort of went really hardcore with like jittery motions on the characters? It would be very much like,
Yeah.
okay. I think this is an interesting combination of like human animation and that, where you like have elements of that, but it's also like much smoother motion, if that makes sense. And I feel like the areas, like now, with that in mind, I feel like the areas that I'm noticing as maybe like standing out as being different from the others are the ones where it sort of like is maybe bouncing more towards Lego Movie than it is like the sort of rest of the style with like the trying to like match the character's motions from the clip, if that makes sense. But yeah, no, but I mean, I think overall like this is really, really cute. Very well done. Cool. Any other thoughts, comments on this one? All right. Cool. On to us.
In the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, you are under arrest, Chancellor.
Are you threatening me, Master Jedi?
The Senate will decide your fate.
I am the Senate.
Not yet.
It's treason, then.
Such a deeply uncomfortable scream.
In the name
I'm going
of
to
the
keep saying
Galactic
that.
Senate of
All right. Fanu. It's
It's so bad.
it's so completely different in levels of audio as well. Glowing things.
the Senate will decide your fate.
I am the Senate.
Not yet.
It's treason,
All right. Cool. Have at it.
I really like the way the lightsabers, and I really like the way you get the cat twist off. It's really like fluid, but in a lot of the scenes, there's kind of just like still. It's completely still, which is fine, but it would have been nice to see some like, even like small things, like a small talkie.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like just like scaling up and down. That's what I ended up doing.
Gotcha. No, I do agree that would be good. I think that especially for like this is like a really, really close up shot, and it's like,
It's
yeah,
But I imagine for the object used, it's kind of justified that it's got that close up.
right. Cool. Yeah. It would also be neat if you're looking for a way to sort of like force motion into that. The scaling up and down option is definitely a good one. You could also throw in some kind of little like blend shape or something. So like maybe I'm thinking like the little paper wrapping around the eraser would like function as lips almost. So you could sort of like, as he's talking, get a little bit of motion like right in the center of that or something like that, and go for kind of like a puppety feel to it almost. I definitely like, I think the little lightsabers and safety pins glowing, A, is hilarious, and B, it does kind of, I think, help to sort of portray like what's going on. Also the green one that like blinks on, I think is cute, because it's like, I don't know, it feels like the sort of blinky light in the background that's like always sort of defective but like isn't, but I think that makes a nice effect. Cool. Any other thoughts, comments? But yeah, I mean, I think honestly my main focus would be kind of like was already said, maybe like see if you can force a little bit more action into the sort of talking scenes. Did you have any kind of rig on the base pen? I actually don't remember. Okay.
But it was only able to do so much, and I tried putting it on the safety pin, but when I unfolded it, I realized it extended too much. In order to get the point to be facing towards anything, I would have to extend it fully, and I just click into the pen.
Gotcha.
So I figured just turning it, like, changing the emission would give me a impression of what it was.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think the sort of emissiveness works. I mean, the whole point, like, if you look at lightsabers, they are kind of blunt, so it doesn't feel weird that you have this, like, blunt safety pin, because it's basically will just, like, slice through anything. So it kind of works. But yeah, I was going to suggest if there was, like, a deformer on the pen, you could use that and just sort of, like, poke a little bit of head motion in there, in lieu of just, like, using scale or something like that as he was talking. I'm also perhaps thinking, like, maybe as a sort of way, I don't know if this would actually read well, but I'm thinking just like have him, have Palpatine basically just like, you could use the bend deformer to have him like almost leaning casually up on the sort of erasers, like he was just standing there like, what's up guys, like I don't care about you at all. And that maybe, I don't know if it would actually read, but I was thinking maybe that would be an interesting way to sort of make him feel a little bit less stiff, but I think overall, like the concept is definitely there, and it definitely reads as sort of what you were intending to go for. I think maybe just like, again, a little bit more polished, a little bit more motion on some of the areas where it's like a little bit still, but like the action and stuff, I think is pretty nice. But yeah, cool. Any other thoughts, comments? All right. Cool. The only other, and this was really tiny, silly, small thing. I'm curious, I'm gonna go back and double check really quick the colors of the original lightsabers. Where am I? What? I was just curious because it looked like the ones that you used were all the like pure cyan and like pure other colors, which I just thought was kind of funny. All right. They are kind of just like generic colors. But yeah, I mean, that was like literally the only other comment is like I feel like anybody who recognizes or like does a lot of work with like anything digital coloring is going to recognize the like pure cyan, pure magenta, and like pure green. Which is a small thing that probably doesn't matter at all. But like some of the like, instead of magenta, like this dude's saber is like a little bit more purpley kind of thing. And that's like literally the only other comment I have. But again, that's a very small, strange little nitpick. But yeah, last call for thoughts, comments? All right.
in the court. Our moon, and Bismarck, who are hereby charged with the murder of precious Lilywhite. Oh, it's not me too. You're the one who killed her.
Alright, cool. I'm just gonna throw this out there. It's really funny that your monkey actually looks nicer and like more like refined than whatever the heck this thing is. This coconut with a piece of string tied across it. I just thought that was funny. Anywho, why can I not find your thing?
Oh, it's not me too. You're the one who killed her.
Initial thought is like it's really dark. Yeah. And if possible, like having maybe moving area lights to because the original flip is really blue. Like even in the car, like I love the emission light or like the light that's whirring around on top.
Mhm.
It's a very nice touch. But also like whatever film or scene that was, like they filled that set with lights. So I would recommend like fake it till you make it and just area light it up in order to get what you want. Either that or post production and just rank up those like RGB values specifically blue. But I think like this is a big improvement from what we saw in class. I love the chaos and also the bananas stay flat. So good to see.
Quote of the class: "The bananas they flap." Yeah, I mean, I would agree with pretty much all of those comments. I would say if you're gonna brighten this, it would be better to do it in render because I think this is so dark. Doing it in post is just gonna like destroy any of the levels that you have and like be weird, crunchy value-y. Like I don't think there's enough color data to like do that in post.
Yeah, I started rendering before I got the feedback from last week. So then
Gotcha.
I tried doing it in post, and
Yeah.
it just like completely looked awful. So yeah,
Gotcha.
I didn't really notice because my monitor is like super bright.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's the hard thing with monitors. It's always, if you're going for like, this must look nice on all computers and all monitors, put in more contrast and make it slightly brighter than you think it should be. Mostly I think part of it is like honestly just the contrast. But yeah, I used to have teachers that were like, if it doesn't look nice on the projector, then I'm gonna grade you terribly and you should always come in and test it. And I'm like, that is not feasible for most people. Like what? I kind of envy your monitor being that bright, honestly. And then what did you do? It looks like it's just sort of like strips of bamboo. So you get just kind of like stuck with that for the bamboos.
Yeah, I did the tiling. It repeats forever, and it's just like one of the strips on each side.
Yeah.
That loops until the car stops.
And how did you make it loop? Because I noticed every once in a while, and I was like looking for this because I talked to you about the bamboo specifically, but like every once in a while I see there's like a really hardcore like motion blurry blip in the bamboo. Is that like it just sort of cycling back to where it should be and just like catching that frame of like extreme motion?
That actually might be because of motion blur, because it was just changing in one frame. And I did notice
Oh, yeah.
that my camera blurred between shots as well.
Yes.
Once I included motion blur.
Yes.
I know how to fix that.
You can't.
Whenever it switches shots, you can see it gets really blurry even though it's switching in like one frame.
Right. Well, that's why it's getting blurry, because it's doing a really extreme motion in one frame.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, like when I was in school, or like actually rendering animations out, a lot of times I would be super lazy and just like use one camera for animations. But it will like, if you don't have motion blur, it's fine. Once you turn on motion blur, the camera like zipping from point A to like all the way somewhere point B is gonna leave you like a giant streak of like one frame of just total motion blur. So in that case, if it's just around camera cuts, you should usually be fine just going through and like grabbing that one frame and just deleting it. For something like the bamboo where it's in the middle, perhaps there would be like something else that could be worked out. What I was thinking is what you might do is like if you have like chunks of bamboo that are moving, you could sort of have one that was off screen and then just sort of keep bringing it forward, almost like a conveyor belt or like a treadmill. Where like as soon as it's off screen, then you can bring it forward and it might not have as aggressive motion blur. Like just turn it off and then turn it back on kind of after you've moved it, and that would kind of fix the weird motion blurring thing.
Yeah, that would probably work a lot better. Because yeah, in here it's like really obvious when it's going back to the front.
Could
Yeah.
we also just have it where he adds the background in post? Like he renders the first shot without a background, so it's like
Yeah.
just alpha.
That's definitely another way to do it. I think for this one, I think there might be enough camera movement where, at least in some of the shots, like where it would be easier to sort of like have it in render. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely always another way to sort of do stuff, is do things in post. And you can even render in like multiple batches. So even if you're not, you could basically render this as two separate parts. Like one is just like the front, with your cars and your bananas and stuff like that. The other one would be like the whole background. And that way you could sort of like manipulate them separately if you needed to. You could also, again, assuming the levels are like a little bit brighter, if you did that, it would be an easy way to sort of like play with the levels of just the foreground or like just the cars to like pop them out from the background a little bit. So yeah, I mean, that is definitely a good suggestion and something you might consider. I love the monkey's eyeballs. They're so creepy. They're just like, I am so listen watching you. Also, this reminds me, if any of you guys are bored and into like weird tabletop minis, Google Banana Knight at some point. Somebody made like a posable banana with armor that just reminds me a lot of this. But yeah, any other thoughts, comments? Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think like for the most part, like all the texturing and stuff and like the animation is pretty smooth. What I would focus on, for one, is the lighting. Like that would actually be probably like the first thing I would look at, and then I would also maybe try to get in a little bit more secondary motion, because you have really nice models and stuff for the cars, and just try to like fudge in. I see it looks like you maybe. Oh no, because you said you started rendering beforehand. Maybe try to get like a lot of that sort of jitter going. And I was saying, I think in your feedback, like have the bananas bounce independently of the car, so it would like punch in a little bit of extra secondary motion. Because I think you have a lot of like, again, you have like some nice like weird animations with like the banana flaps and that kind of thing. Those sort of extra touches would help sort of accentuate the good things you already have going on. The lighting would also help show off all of your nice models and textures because they do look very nice. But yeah, last call, thoughts, comments? All right. So I have two more after this. All right. So original clip from the best movie ever made. Cough. Wait, what am I doing?
Wow, that's
Wrong
an
one.
interesting take. It's almost like, that's also my take.
Princess
Also,
Bride
I
was
don't think this
amazing.
book is but I might be wrong.
Gotcha.
Yeah, unfortunately.
All right. Would you prefer watching it in the demo reel with sound or in this one?
I feel like it's easier to focus. Well, actually, see, one of my proudest achievements with this is that the sound cues are like perfect.
Gotcha.
All
So,
the camera cues are perfect. So.
do you want to watch it with the demo? I can see if I can
Yeah, sure.
zoom in. Damn it. Yeah, I did notice the sound cues got much more refined since I think the last time I saw this. Okay.
I don't have to rest. I'm leaving. So what happens now? The first genre is well intended.
Interesting.
Sportsmanlike. No tanks, no weapons. Skin against the law.
I mean, you put down your rock and I put down my sword. Try and kill each other like civilized people.
Should be now.
Okay. I think you guys are slightly more afraid of that kind of fighting.
From my fault, we look bigger and stronger.
But yeah.
But I'll be ready.
Alright, so I have no idea how to zoom in on this, but does anyone have thoughts and comments? Cool. Alright, well I do think you did a good job. I remember it seems like pretty much most of the feedback that I gave you last time was, you know, a thing where like it's like a little bit more motion. I think I said like give Fezzik a little bit more like talky motion. Et cetera, et cetera. So that's cool to see.
What happens now?
The first genre is well intended.
Yep.
I like that the top of the spiritual guy like moves to indicate talking. Like it adds a lot because since he's kind of just standing
Put down
there.
your rock and I put down my
Otherwise,
sword.
without that,
Try and kill each other like civilized people.
Mm-hmm.
the only thing with that though is it looks like he's also holding the rock at the top of the bag, and the rock isn't moving with it, so it looks a little bit odd.
But I'll be ready to fight.
I agree. That was going to also be my comment. Also, I think it's a potato, which is really funny.
It's a bean.
It's a bean?
The small bean. It's like a stale bean.
A stale bean? Wait, do beans get stale?
Well, it's like, I don't know. For some
Like-
reason my
like a
mind
dried
is
bean?
Like those really weird toy beans, and I was like, is
Toy
that,
beans?
that
What?
might- hold on. I can look this up. I swear it's a thing.
What? Okay. Well, regardless, while you're finding that, I do, I do concur. It would be nice if the apparent bean would move with the top of the bag. I also think it would be nice, like, still with the sort of like running lunge, if the banana maybe like leaned forward a little bit more into that, because it feels a little bit kind of stiff. The motion of the banana, like when he puts down the sword, is quite nice. Like that, I think reads pretty well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think as he's running forward, I think that would be good to like show him maybe leaning forward a little bit more. Because again, you see that in the original clip, but also again, it would kind of make it look a little bit like he was like putting more of an effort into the run, if that makes sense. It also looks like the sound cues definitely line up, but like when he starts running, or maybe the distance kind of doesn't. So if you look at, it's a nice put down. Where was it? So your banana starts running. He starts running pretty much at the same time Wesley does, but Wesley has a period where he like takes a few steps before he like gets up to full speed.
Yeah, it's acceleration.
Right. So I think if the banana replicated that, it would also help to make that feel more forceful, because right now it just sort of looks like he starts at one speed and he continues at that speed.
I feel like what a lot of because of the way I decided to do the banana, I had two different versions of it. I could have, because he kind of like leans back into it. Which in hindsight was probably not best, because then I could have implemented that acceleration. The other idea I had was just using squash and stretch to like implement a like jump, so they would jump towards it.
I can kind of see that, where he would sort of like throw himself at Fezzik instead of just like running into him. I kind of like that idea.
Also, it's called Mighty Beans.
Oh my god, those. I used to try to collect those. I'm ashamed. That looks nothing like a mighty bean,
I know,
though.
they're like
What?
cylindrical, or not cylindrical. They're like,
There's like pills.
yeah, they're like pills. But I was like, beans.
What? Okay.
The machinations of my mind are far too deep for you to understand.
Apparently.
Not intelligent.
I get your point. It's fine. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, I would focus mostly on sort of refining the talking mouth so that like there you have the little bean moving with it. It might be nice if that was more on screen. Have that like move with the bag, and then just sort of like keep sort of pushing the secondary motion. especially sort of like when the banana is like talking, like maybe get sort of, you can see like as Wesley turns his head, his hips sort of like turned with it. Try to get that into the banana as well. That'll also help make it feel a little bit more realistic. And then he's also sort of doing that like nervous sort of like, am I gonna have to run at any second? Like, am I gonna have a rock pelted at me? So.
How would you? I tried using a jiggle deformer. Long story short, that made my animation a mess.
Yeah.
It didn't really like work. It just kind of looked silly.
Yeah.
So how would you like implement that sort of nervousness, especially
Is this
when the entire banana isn't seen?
right? Is this rigged or is this deformers? Okay, so if you had a deformer, it looks like you sort of have like a hip and then like an upper body.
It's 3 pivots.
Okay.
So it's bottom, mid, top. And
Gotcha.
The bag is very weird, but it's like a spider where it's one,
yeah,
and two
that makes sense.
for the arms.
One thing you could consider, and this is like, if you ever rig a bag in the future, do like pretty much like a flour sack rig, where you have like a few joints in the center, and then have your spider thing, because that would give you a little bit more motion or like control over like the inside of the body. But I think what I would do for the nervousness is just sort of when you forget that you have a mic attached to you, just sort of like have him maybe like shimmy a little bit, like back and forth, or do like kind of like twisting, and then he doesn't even really need to like move per se, because you don't really have the like feet to be able to do the sort of back and forth that he's doing, but maybe just like add a little bit of jitter, add like a little bit of like sort of twisting, like am I going forward, am I going backward, kind of just like overall sort of like slight motion. I don't think it needs to come across as like, oh my god, I'm quaking in fear. But yeah, cool. Any other thoughts, comments on this? All right. In that case, we come to the last project of the finals. This is very loud. Alright, so original clip and the final clip. Anyone have any thoughts and comments on this while this is going?
The special effects are fantastic. Really subtle. I feel like, especially on the inside of the microwave.
Yeah.
I just took like stock footage of like welding sparks and then tossed them and
Nice.
on top of like where the other one. So
Also,
It works. I do agree. I do think like seeing all of the frames rendered out of like the glowing light and stuff, it does add something that like wasn't inherently obvious in just the play blast or like just the like 35 still frames or whatever. And yeah, the sparks do look nice. Anyone else have any thoughts, comments?
how did you do like the whipped cream effect? Is that that's no.
Wait, in the
with like the parfait thing? Yeah. Okay, so that's like a cone that has lattice form, like really aggressively around, and it created. That's smart.
oh yeah. You could also use how aggressively did you lattice deform that?
Pretty.
I was gonna say, if anyone's interested and there's time at the end, I can show you probably a faster way to do a similar effect that just starts with a cylinder and then basically like twist deforms it. But either way, yes, that did come out nicely. I saw another hand up.
I just was gonna say I really like in the overhead shot how like every single fork and spoon is like moving in the shot, going crazy. Just like a lot of detail for like a really short time. It adds a lot of
Indeed.
this one.
I also I don't remember seeing the sunglasses before either. Is that a new thing?
Yeah.
Okay, I do like that. It's completely absurd, but in the best way possible.
You said to add more emotion.
And that But it reads. But the like, holy crap of like the slowly taking off the glasses totally reads. I think the only thing I would really say about this, in terms of like effects, is it might be cool to get some lights in the oven coming out. Because like in the original one, there was like some yellow light sort of shining in on Captain America as he like came out of the thing, which is kind of like this like oh moment. And if right now it kind of loses that because there's nothing. It ends up just sort of being like an oven with a muffin in it, and it kind of looks a little bit bland. So if you had those lights, I think it would be like that very much like oh, you kind of bring some of that back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got you. Also, I tried bringing my muffin into ZBrush, and then she did not become the flouncy, bouncy, beautiful muffin of my dreams. Question. As like a piece of advice for either bringing a sculpt into Maya or like making the normals are aggressive enough that you can see how like easy it is.
I see.
It doesn't like it doesn't transfer really
Yeah.
well. I was very sad. But would you recommend retypologizing or just like bringing in the sculpt by chance?
I have two thoughts. I mean, so normal maps might just be sort of like push up the, like do a little bit of like resculpting in ZBrush. There is a way, and I don't recommend it for like super crazy stuff, but if you go into ZBrush and you have a sculpt you really like, go into the plugins panel and Decimation Master. If you look it up, there's tutorials on it online. It'll very, very effectively strip polys out of your scene. It'll also triangulate your mesh, but it will, like for something like this where it's not really moving, shrugs, and it'll give you like a really nice sculpted muffin or head or like whatever with like 100,000 polys in it, which is not something that should destroy Maya. I've put worse things into Maya before. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's like helpful, but Decimation Master is great. Also, if you need for like 3D printing, because you like have to have that detail in the mesh, but you don't need like a 7 million poly mesh. It's also really nice for that kind of stuff. I like the texturing. Is like cool in the corner. It gets a little smoother on the edges, but I really like the sort of like whipped cream stuff on the inside. I think that came out pretty nice. But yeah, any other thoughts, comments?
I just realized in that overhead scene there's one fork that appears halfway through the shot.
What? Wait, where is this fork?
It's in the front, right in front of the
Oh my god. Wah, 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 wah. That's really funny.
I'll have to get it. Don't worry.
Find the fork!
I really like it.
That is nice looking. I did notice like one or two, there's like seams in the texturing, but that does look nice, like, apart from that. But yeah, cool. Any other thoughts, comments? All right. I think the only other thing that like might be kind of cool is if you ever go back and like tweak this, maybe grab some assets you have laying around or whatever. Like try to get some more stuff in the background. There's one or two clips like for like this is not an issue. Every once in a while you see like really really far in the background. The parfait shot is one of them, and there's kind of like nothing there. And if you had that extra sort of like stuff, it might sort of help sell the idea that it was like some kind of mad scientist cake factory. Just throw an easy bake oven in the background. Why not?
There isn't like the original clip, like a bureau of like government then, so I might just
Gotcha.
make, like a cabinet of works that are like
Yeah.
legally using.
Right. No, I think that's
Definitely would try.
totally viable. But yeah, cool. Last call for other quick thoughts, comments? All right. In that case, that was the last final that I had. So go forth, be free, enjoy your rest of your finals and your break. Hooray!